Fusion that probably most of you in the room are pretty familiar with. The existence of this animal called Fusion. It necessitated us getting enhanced computer systems so that we could run the software. And so right now in my office, it's just they're staring at me. They're like making fun of me. All these computer terminals are stacked. They're ready to go in. They're not in yet, but boy, we are on the verge. And what's going to be exciting about this, again, a curriculum change, an enhancement, is that we'll be able to teach some things that are more office skill related, that are direct. You know, if someone wants to work in a position that's needs those office skills, we can do things around Microsoft Office and all those computer skills that someone needs to get hired these days. It's just a basic form of literacy, right? So we want to push past simply providing lessons around AT and go deeper into, hey, pull this document down, fill it out, email it over to so-and-so, write correspondence about it, you know, whatever you need to do, make a PowerPoint. So that's our next big change at McDowell, exciting change. Another one I'll tell you about is that we put into place a community resource individual. Not a social worker, but I guess it's the easiest way to describe what this individual does. You're a student at McDowell and you need to apply for a job, but you're missing your birth certificate. It's been lost somewhere 5 moves ago. Jason Cole will help you do the paperwork, make the phone calls, get the new birth certificate. You need to sign up for TARC 3. Jason can help you sign up for TARC 3. Get on a list for housing. He can help you do that. Open a bank account, get banked. He can help you do that. So that's a very necessary and a role he's been doing now for several months, and it has made a big difference in our students' lives. Cora mentioned that Heidi Kesterson has joined us. She's our new facility administrator. She's taken the position that Steve Dealey held formerly. Tell you a little bit about Heidi. She has an occupational therapy background, 18 years of work experience at NeuroRestorative, which is an inpatient facility. I think there are maybe 2 or 3 different locations in town, and they work with individuals with traumatic brain injury. So Heidi has a lot of experience working in a residential facility. Heidi has helped bring about this spirit of renewal, along with, you know, the change in Mary's position to, and some changes with curriculum and you know, a lot of change, good change, I think. And Heidi's another part of that. It was kind of fun. Heidi instantly wanted more paint. And there were some other staff members that jumped on that bandwagon. So there's a little bit of beautification that's gone on, but below the surface, there are a lot of other things changing. Heidi has worked hard on building safety and the safety of our occupants. She's focused on, unfortunately, we've had to focus a lot on our HVAC system. Corinne is here in the room, and the day that she first came to see her new office, which is at the McDowell Center. We have an office space for our Helen Keller partners at the National Center. We had flooding, we had air conditioning problems, and she probably thought, oh my gosh, where am I going to be housed? All of that is cleared up and it's perfect now. But the HVAC system, you know, things like that, that's why you need a good facility administrator in place, and she's handled that. She's also working to get more accessibility for our bathrooms, our doors, our independent living dorms. So beyond the surface, you know, some good changes in place for the building. And we're glad we have her to focus on that sort of thing. Heidi has also brought a new emphasis on getting out of the building, I think it's because of her occupational therapy background too, that adaptive leisure component. She's very hip on getting us out and doing things. So students go to the waterfront, students go to the Derby Museum, things like that, out to restaurants. In addition, I think staff are getting out more. Next week, for example, is an event with Greater Louisville Inc., and both Mary, Herod, and Heidi are going to staff this, and it's kind of like speed dating. Workforce and employers meet each other, and so I think it's going to be a really great event, and it's going to mean a lot for us bringing that employer piece closer to McDowell, and continuing to not ignore the fact that the reason we're there is to get people jobs. Increase independence, get people jobs, and we need the employers to do that. So, to close the door on the McDowell discussion, right now we have about 18 individuals that we're currently serving. 6 are day, 12 are residential. And I think by the end of the month we will have worked with 80 students. So that's where we are. Any questions on McDowell? All right. Orientation and mobility. Well, this relates a little bit to McDowell, but we're still looking for an orientation mobility instructor that can be housed at McDowell. We have 2 others in the field who are working, and year to date have served about 111 individuals. More than half of those individuals are VR consumers, about 69 of them, and the rest are independent living and older blind. Majority of those are in the 55 years of age or older, about 42 of those individuals. And then we contract with a lot of orientation and mobility folks to serve all our consumers across the state, because obviously 2 is not going to get it. So we work with a lot of individuals who have that certification that we need. Bioptic driving is another program under Blind Services and continues to be staffed by Marlon Linton and Brenda Edens. Marlon is in Louisville, Brenda's in Lexington. Year to date, we've had 9 individuals get fully licensed. We have 7 individuals that they are currently working with who are in training status. Training can mean 40 hours behind the wheel, 60 hours behind the wheel, whatever is needed. So we have 7 individuals going through that right now, and 18 evaluations are completed, and those individuals are in one of the stages of the process of getting their bioptic device created and fitted and getting used to using it. Moving on to the independent living and older blind program. Gabe Hanel is now the manager of that program. I think she always was in practice, and now she is in name. We have 8 counselors serving the state, and they're housed in Louisville and E-Town, Prestonsburg, Somerset, Lexington, Northern Kentucky, Paducah, and Bowling Green. We will be hiring 1 new independent living staff person shortly. Hopefully within, I don't know, we'll get it out within the next few weeks. So they are busy folk. They have served 702 cases since October 1st, 2018. 577 of those were 55 years and older. And she gave me the stat for how many of those individuals are 95 years and older, and I think it was 17, actually. Year to date, they've served 112 of our, is it 126 counties? Yep. 120 counties. So they're doing really well. IL staff not only serve individual consumers, but they do a lot of outreach activities. They do large community events. They train partner staff. They serve on interagency groups. They go to conferences, and they went to the KAER. 2 of them went to the KAER conference and trained there. Did really good sessions. I sat through both. they might be members of, for example, Mental Health and Aging Coalition in the Bluegrass area. So very involved in their communities and making sure that their services are known about. And finally, Chad Hunt is our deafblind state coordinator. And so his role is to provide consultation and help with case management to our rehab counselors for the blind and our rehab counselors for the deaf. And he works closely with the Helen Keller National Center, who does the I Can Connect grant now, Deaf Blind Project out of UK, the Kentucky Commission for Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and the Kentucky Association of Deaf Blind. And they all form an interagency work team. Chad gave me some numbers. 45 individuals who are receiving voc rehab services are categorized as deaf-blind, and 10 individuals receiving independent living services that he works with are deaf-blind. And he'll also provide consultation to families and individuals who are too young to officially be consumers of ours yet. He's there as a resource to the state also. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about the services services to students. Okay, so we have some summer programs. There's the PATH program at McDowell, 3-week intensive program. This year we served 13 students in that program, and we worked with Kentucky School for the Blind staff and the Education Department at UK to provide services for these students. They did all those things that you heard us talk about that are important for pre-ed students, which is going on job tours, learning about job skills and things like that. The Insight program continues. It served 18 students this year. That's an intensive program at Moorhead. KSB and KSB Charitable Fund, Moorhead, and Kentucky Ed Development Corp. all work to provide these students a great post-secondary experience in the dorms and in the classrooms. And there's the summer work experience that continues with this age group. 22 students took part in summer work, and they did it at Kentucky Kingdom, APH, and the Louisville Zoo. They worked with a rehab counselor to provide, they had to turn in their timesheet, they got paid, and they had supervision, not by us, but by the people who work at APH or the Zoo or Kentucky Kingdom. And then there's a continuing program, World of Work, around 10 hours a week while the students are in school at KSB. They go out and work real jobs. And finally, the ECC Week, Expanded Core Curriculum Week. This is a program specific for young people who are deafblind, and it's basically everything you wish you'd learned in school, but they taught you algebra instead. This is all the other stuff that they go through. Families are invited to participate, and students do independent living, they do job exploration and all that. This year we had 9 students participate in that program. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I went over. I tried to be brief, but it's a lot.
We can take a couple questions if anybody has anything. Okay. Yeah, I guess. Oh, okay. Yes, Cindy? Oh, Terry, I mean, okay. Y'all just need to say your name because I can't say. It's okay.
Terry Turla. With regard to the independent living and older blind program, in the past I have personally seen very honestly questionable services provided to some folks where a specialist comes in, hands them 2 or 3 devices, leaves, and they're never seen again. Has there been any standardization involving assessment and planning for what older folks need?
There are processes and practices that are in place, and maybe you can talk to Helga a little bit about that afterwards, if you would, and see what those concerns are so that she can address those with Gay Panel. Now, one thing about the independent living program is we cannot provide long-term services through that. So the services are short-term, but they should be obviously providing training over those devices that they're delivering. So we'll talk with you a little bit later. There's two more.
Okay, well, we're going to have to move quickly. I can't, there's somebody back there. Who? Jason? Real quick, Jason. Stand up, we can't hear you up here, please, if you can.
Yes. Yeah, there are some things that in the independent living program they do fund. So, yes. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Train you how to use it.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, we'll take one more. Who was? Say your name, please.
Sierra.
Oh, Sierra. Okay.
I'm a parent of a KSB student. So I just had a question about like your student outreach. I know you all work a lot with high school students, but I didn't know if there was any plan on expanding that to younger kids because we all know it can take longer for them to learn some of this stuff. And I just feel like beginning to reach out to some of the younger kids, even in middle school, would benefit them.
The pre-employment transition services serve 14 to 21. So we, under the federal law, can go as low as 14 to 21. But the IDEA, under the law, while they are students in the school system, it clearly outlines that it's the school system's role to provide them, any learning or accommodations that they need. So, and then we're supposed to enter in when they are the age of 14. And really, I think the whole history behind passing WIOA and putting the services in for 14 to 21 was to increase our involvement in the school system. But there also are clear roles that are defined in the law. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Okay, thank you, ladies, and thank you all for your questions. This is how we learn, live, and grow. Now I want to welcome, first time at our NFB convention, the director of our Business Enterprises program, Corey Markham.
Good morning. Sorry I couldn't be here last year. I was traveling with Blast last year, so that had me gone on conflicting weekends. To give some of you all that may not know about Kentucky Business Enterprise is the blind vendor program across the state. Okay, sorry about that. I'm used to being pretty loud, so I couldn't tell. Kentucky Business Enterprise is based in the 1936 Randolph-Shepard Act, which gives blind or visually impaired people the right to run vending or cafeteria operations across the state. It's operated in federal and state buildings. Last year, federal fiscal year 18, we had gross revenue of a little over $19 million, and that's up from $17.6 million from the year before. We have average vendor earnings in fiscal year 18 of $78,000, and we currently have 35 active vendors across the state. Within those 35 active vendors, each vendor has an average service of 33 years. 3 vendors have over 50. We operate in 17 federal properties, 22 state properties, and 1 private industry, which gives us a total of 40 properties across the state. That does mean, if you do the math, we've got some doing double duty. We are attempting to grow our ranks, but Kentucky, like most states, is having trouble filling the gaps with acquiring vendors that want to work and want to grow their businesses. Just to give you all a highlight of the couple of highlights from the last 2 years. The last 2 years has been about breaking down barriers within KBE. one thing I noticed when I came aboard, there was two distinct groups of KBE. There was the agency and there was the vendors. We've learned to break down that barrier. Now there is one KBE. Without one, the other doesn't exist. If I don't have vendors, I don't have an agency. If the agency doesn't exist, the vendors don't have a program. So now we've kind of worked and changed things where it is a KBE family, not just one group versus the other. In 2018, going into 19, we've got a newly elected committee of blind vendors that now truly has a mission of wanting to work with the agency and build what's best for all the vendors across the state. We developed a new training program with JCTCS to provide a food service certificate for vendors coming into the program. So they go through a class that focuses on accounting, bookkeeping, customer service, basic food preparation, human resources management. And what this does is it makes them better prepared for going into the next operation that they will enter in with KBE. But if they don't stay with KBE, they still graduate with this food and beverage certificate that they can take anywhere because it's accredited through JCTCS. I've got a short video that WLKY did out of Louisville when they covered the release of this program. It was very well received through the public. We had executive leadership through the cabinet there, as well as executive leadership through JCTCS with Dr. Handy and Secretary Ramsey, both on present to kick this program off. So I'll share this real quick.
Justin Burgess's passion for cooking shows in the kitchen.
Once we get done here, I am very excited about getting right to work. Whatever site we get an opportunity to get, want to take it and build it up as much as possible, as big as we can.
Diagnosed with a degenerative eye disease, Purvis is slowly losing his vision. This course is helping him keep his passion for cooking while dealing with his vision loss.
We get that more exemption. Anytime we're moving in a space, we're announcing ourselves as we move to let people know that I'm behind you, I'm beside you, don't turn around too quick.
The course is being funded by the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation in partnership with Workforce Solutions.
What we wanted to do was create a tangible program so they can get college credit, professional development certificates, and they can also get the skill set to be the entrepreneur in the vendor program.
Right. So where you turn it on and off.
Kramer Schneider says the program is not just about earning a certificate so he can work in a commercial kitchen. It's about learning important life skills.
People with a vision that's non-existent or really low like mine is by feeling, obviously. And so when you're dealing with something that's that high, you can't do that.
Kramer comes from a family of entrepreneurs and would like to own his own restaurant one day.
You basically are only limited by your work ethic and what you want to make it.
Carrie Grace, WLKY News.
I want to thank a lot of people for getting that program ready to go. I mean, we had help with them from the McDowell Center. Sandra came and worked with the chef when it came to accessibility in the kitchen. Jenny Tyree and her staff helped with accessibility coming with the books. Helga Gilbert helped with the case management grant and to fund the program. So, I mean, this was a group effort with many of your members playing an active part in that development and the outcomes that it produced. And so far to date, we graduated 4 vendors with that program. 3 of them have already found active work within KBE, which to me is impressive because some people have had to wait years for openings as soon as they graduate. I've heard of Justin Purvis just a minute ago. Justin was one of 2 vendors in the last 2 years that were selected as NABM Emerging Leaders, which is exciting to me. What this program does is it just helps to establish the next generation of Randolph-Shepherd leadership. And for the last 2 years, KBE and the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation has been able to sponsor people to attend these meetings and trainings in D.C. Last year it was Miss Lynn Florence from APH, and this year it was Mr. Justin Purvis which is now serving at the CHR building in Frankfurt. We've recalculated the way we do initial inventory for vendors. In the past, vendors got a flat fee of $5,000 for their initial inventory. If you've been to the grocery store lately, you know $5,000 doesn't go very far anymore. So now it's figured on 3 weeks worth of the historical data for that facility. So that's the initial inventory that they're getting from vocational rehabilitation. So that gives them a much better financial footing going forward and knowing what they need to be prepared for. And also included in this package was their first year's liability insurance, because a lot of vendors may not have that initial first year's capital to fund their insurance. So that's now being provided by OVR. So that's a major change that allows for our vendors to be on much solid ground than they were on before. We've opened 2 Frankfurt cafeterias, one that was completely redone and with new equipment and decor, all done with KBE generated funds at no cost to the taxpayer of Kentucky. We formed a relationship with the Kentucky Auditor's Office, in which they are helping us develop our fiscal oversight roles, ensuring that set-asides are paid correctly, the vendors are calculating things correctly, and that we're not missing dollars earned, because anybody knows that set-asides that are produced by the vendors are matchable at the federal level, so that money adds up quickly. And it's also helped us identify some practices that may have been subpar or no longer, in this day and age, that are no longer relevant. We've reopened the Gene Snyder Courthouse Snack Shop here in Louisville. We're working with Kentucky School for the Blind to, I work with Bo in redeveloping that relationship, because I think that relationship kind of disappeared for a little while with KBE. We're working to redevelop the Den, as Bo calls it, which is a retail operation on campus for the students there to get entrepreneurial experience there. And I take every opportunity I can to speak there, and we're trying to grow that program through some work experience through the summer and possibly bringing some of the vendors on site to speak to the students there and many of those alumni, so they can understand that things can happen. We've entered into a new machine lease program for our vending machines. We are the 2nd state in the nation to go to this model. Several others have joined this kind of operation. It allows for a quicker replacement of machines into the field, which gives us new equipment which is based in technology, completely cashless, fully ADA compliant, braille keypads, speak boxes, so it's much more user friendly to the vendors that's using it and the consumer that's using it to buy things. I'm talking to some of the other ADA compliance with these machines. The keypad and the receiver or receiving slot for candy bars and things like that are all at wheelchair height, so these things are much more user friendly when it comes to the consumer. We are starting in 2 weeks, which I am very excited about, a new cloud-based reporting system for KBE, which will allow vendors to make their set-aside payments online. All communications to and from the agency will come through this portal. This portal from day one has been developed with the McDowell Center and the accessibility folks there to make sure that this thing is accessible from day one. We've focused a lot on color contrast, font sizes, font type, whatever it takes to make it, because if it's not, at the end of the day, if it's not usable by our vendors, it's not worth whatever we spend on it. So it has been, Jenny Tyree and them have been available from day one, meeting with this group to develop this from the ground up. So Kentucky will be the first to have this system, so we'll see how well it's received and how well it goes. We start live training not this week, but the following week. So I am very encouraged over that. There's a new level of accountability for the vendors and for KBE, and a new level of transparency that's never been there before. We actively share problems with the committee of blind vendors, and we actively share the revenue streams so that everybody knows what's going on. There is no behind-the-scenes activities. We've opened several new facilities statewide. We've opened Maysville Community College main campus, 2 additional satellite campuses that went along with that, the Wendell Ford Training Center, and 2 cafeterias in Frankfurt. And we will be opening the new 500 building, which replaced the Capitol Tower in Frankfurt, which your own Buster will be the vendor at the new 500 building. KBE has developed new rules and regs that have been that are ready for ratification by the Department of Education and the Kentucky Legislature. This was done with full active participation and supported by the Committee of Blind Vendors, so that's been a 2-year project in the works. We're reasserting the Randolph-Shepherd priority in Kentucky, and that means working with the public colleges and universities to understand that the Randolph-Shepherd Act does apply to them. And we're also going into arbitration with Fort Knox for the remaining vending there that's currently not being done by a KBE vendor. As Cora mentioned, there have been some major staff changes. Janice Jackson replaces Amy Redford. Janice Jackson has a background that I could not be any happier about. I mean, she's my right hand. She has a background in CE level corporate suite assistance that is unbelievable. I mean, she has managed and worked with the right hands of the president of Churchill Downs and several other families in the thoroughbred industry. So she definitely has a world of knowledge and teaches me something every day. I think I am so lucky to have her. Jeff Garrison remains on board. His historical knowledge of KBE and the history of its vendors is irreplaceable. Shelby Gleason is a repair tech, and I have yet to see a task that boy can't do. We are adding to the family. We are reestablishing the position of assistant director. We are replacing a coordinator that was due to a vacancy because of a staff transfer. And we are, for the first time, establishing the position of a food service coordinator. So this will be KBE's own chef in residence to help with the food service operations and understanding food safety so that we're making sure that we're doing everything correctly. Luke 12:48 says, I'll make sure I quote this correctly, "For everyone who has been given much, much will be required." And that sums up the Randolph-Shepherd Act with me. The Randolph-Shepherd Act gives so much to the blind community. And with that means so much needs to be given back. The apathy of some vendors and the subpar levels of jobs that have been done in the past just doesn't do anything to build this program or build it up. So that's the one challenge that we've been working on overcoming in this last year. We can't take advantage of this program. Just because the Randolph-Shepherd Act gives us the right to be in a building doesn't mean we should be there if we can't provide the great quality of service, just like any other The Randolph-Shepherd Act should not be the only reason we're in a facility. We need to be there because we can provide the best service. KBE has a greater focus on ever before in customer service and accountability to its other vendors. I call KBE a franchise, for lack of a better word. No, we all don't, every operation doesn't look alike, and the branding isn't exactly the same, but we represent each other at the end of the day. If one facility looks bad, we all look bad. And I do have a strong dedication to that. But with that being said, there are better days to come. We have vendors that are committed to this program and that are committed to these challenges. And yes, there are challenges, but the challenges we face are not independent of Kentucky. The challenges we face are interstate rest area commercialization, lack of acknowledgement of the priority, apathy among the vendor population, and the lack of quality vendors. But these are not independent of Kentucky. These are every state across the nation has these exact same problems. And it's with advocacy from groups like this and determination and quality work from its current vending population, I know we can resolve these problems in Kentucky and hopefully lead the way and show other states how to remedy the problem amongst ourselves. Any questions?
Yeah, we'll take a couple questions if you'll say your name, because I don't always see hands from up here.
It's Todd.
Todd, okay.
Why don't you touch real quickly on the Square system?
We have gone to Square system for all our point of sale. Square has a relationship with the National Association of Blind Merchants, where Square doesn't release a product unless it has been tested by the National Association of Blind Merchants and its accessibility proven. So we know when we're using a Square product, we're using a product that is accessible to the blind population and can be used by the group from day one.
Harish, do your vendors have a chance to attend last conference as well?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I can tell you that Corey is really involved with Blast, and he sends updates about Blast, what's going on with Blast. So, and one thing I like about him is he's always finding something that has to deal with someone with a disability, blindness disability usually, but disabilities in general, overcoming the odds. And he sends these regularly, and they're very inspiring.
Okay, thank you, Corey. All right. We've always been fortunate that we've had great participation from our state agency representing the blind. They've always been very willing and anxious to come to our conventions, and we appreciate that. Is Mackenzie Cantrell here? You're okay. Yay! I am so happy to welcome Mackenzie Cantrell, representative in the 38th District, my district, Jane's district. Woo-hoo. A couple of years ago, we decided that we wanted to get on board with this parents' rights legislation. And one cold February morning, Mackenzie came over to my house and we sat around the dining room table, and I showed her the proposed legislation that we were dealing with on our national level. And she said, I can get behind this, I can get behind this. So she agreed to help sponsor this legislation. Well, unfortunately, with other budgetary concerns, it didn't make it the first year. And so she was ready and willing to get the ball rolling this past legislative session. And well, wouldn't you know it, here comes all the teacher issues and the budget concerns again. And we were just one of like 800 bills that died somewhere between the bathroom and the chambers. But anyway, Mackenzie is here today. And Jane, do you want to do that resolution while Mackenzie's here? We had talked about going ahead and doing that parent right resolution while she's here. And she's going to give us a little advice and how we maybe can work a little harder and a little faster and get ahead of some of these obstacles and get our bill passed. Mackenzie, I welcome you to our podium.
Thank you, Kathy. It is a great honor to be here today, and it was really great to have gotten here a little early and sit through the last presentation about some of your vendors and how you have done some work in the cafeterias and around Frankfort. We have one of our snack shops in the Capitol is staffed mostly by someone who's visually impaired, and he's the best person. He's a great source for gossip. I think he knew when the special legislative session was happening this summer before anyone else did, because they were told to order food and to be prepared to be there all week for everyone, because they keep different hours when we're in session. So that was that was the big rumor of, I can't remember his name. The big rumor was so and so thinks we're going to be in session next week, so it's probably true. I do want to talk to you all a little bit about not just this bill and why it's important. I want to talk a little bit about the structure of Frankfort and how it works, just to be sure that you all are aware of how some of the potential outcomes for this piece of legislation. Again, I serve in the House. The House is a 100-member body, and then the Kentucky Senate is a 38-member body. I serve serve a 2-year term, so I am in the first part of, I was sworn in earlier this year into my second term in the legislature, and that term will go through the end of 2020. Another interesting thing about Frankfurt is our sessions are different every other year. So in odd-numbered years, like 2019, we have a 30-day legislative session, which means 30 working days. It's, I think only politicians could do this, make 30 days last 3 months. But we do, it's 30 working days. We go in for a week in January, and then take most of the rest of January off, go in the first week of February, go all through February, and most of the way through March, but we also have to give time constitutionally for the governor to make vetoes and for the legislature to come back and potentially override those vetoes. So there's a little bit of a break in between that as well. So next year in 2020, we're looking at a 60-day legislative session. It is a longer session because we craft the 2-year state budget during that time. So in the shorter session, it might be shorter, but we can only pass legislation. And in the longer sessions, you would think that a lot more legislation would get passed, but there's also so much preoccupation about the state budget that it probably ends up being about the same. Since I've been in the legislature, this year in the session we passed a lot of pieces of legislation, probably about 150 new laws went into effect. And I imagine we might keep that pace going into next year as well. I would be remiss if I didn't remind you that we have an election on November 5th. I am not up for re-election, but I do feel like it's my duty to remind people to go vote on November 5th. We're electing our state constitutional officers, which is governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, commissioner of agriculture, state auditor, and state treasurer. So I am really loud. So okay. So that's a little bit about how Frankfurt works. Have you all been to the state capitol? Yes. So in case for anybody who hasn't been, I would certainly invite you to do that. Because I think that brings you a little bit closer to how things happen there. We have a very historic building. We have some wonderful state employees who give wonderful tours of the Capitol. So I wanted to be sure that I was able to invite you to our state Capitol, because it is, and it's certainly wonderful when you come while we're in session. You can see part of the process as well. So we've talked a little bit about how sessions work. Are you all familiar with the sort of how a bill becomes a law stuff? We can talk a little bit about that because I heard some mixed responses. So I'll get into, bills go through committees, and then if they're reported favorably from the committee, they go to the full House or Senate. And then, depending on where they originated, they would go to the other chamber. They would go through a committee. They would go through the full House or Senate. So and there can be a lot of changes that happen in between. So that's just, of course, it'd have to be signed by the governor as well. So I want to talk a little bit about why this piece of legislation is important, and I pulled it up this morning. And you can look at it on the LRC website. LRC stands for Legislative Research Commission, lrc.ky.gov. You can go under the 2019 regular session bills. You can look at them under my name, or you can look at it by the number. And it was House Bill 221. And you can see all the actions that took place. And if you click on the link where it says Introduced, you can look at the full text of the bill. So I just pulled some highlights from the bill. If you look at the bolded language, that's the language that's going to be added. There's not going to be any language that is deleted. And this is adding a whole piece to what is KRS Chapter 405, which is basically the domestic custody type statutes. And what I want to point out to you that is important about this Parents' Right Bill is it applies to guardianship, custody, foster care, and adoption. So if you're aware, in Kentucky we have almost 10,000 kids in foster care. You know, we are a lot of these parents are dealing with the opioid crisis and have had children taken out of their custody. Kentucky also incarcerates more parents than any other state in the nation, so that also contributes to the number of children we have in foster care, which is a great opportunity. We've actually dealt with a lot of child custody and foster care statutes over the years because we want to make it easier and streamline people's ability to foster and adopt children. One of the things that I think would be really important for this piece of legislation is your all's stories, your all's ability to connect with your own legislators. Do you all know how you can contact your own legislator where you live? There are a couple different ways. The main way, and I always give this phone number, is 502-564-8100. That's the legislative message line where you can leave a message for your legislator, and it goes into a system where we call them green slips because they used to, mine are still physically printed for me, but they used to be printed on green slips of paper, and it'll have your name, address, telephone number, the bill that you're calling about, and whether you support or oppose it. And that's just a real easy sort of 5-minute way. You don't even have to know who your representative or senator is because once you give your address, someone can look that up for you. And that really builds momentum toward pieces of legislation, is people talking to their own representatives throughout the state. So when I talk to them about, hey, I've got this bill, they'll say, hey, I know someone who contacted me about that. You know, it's important to someone who lives out where I do. Maybe they want, you know, maybe we should get something going. And that's what starts building consensus in Frankfort. Kathy talked about, you know, it's failed the past 2 years. That's not unusual at all for a piece of legislation. Even really, we were the last state to protect victims from dating violence, to get protective orders in the country, and that bill still took 8 years to get passed. So 8 to 10 years is actually not unusual to get a bill to pass. It sort of takes a couple years for people to vet it, look at it, see what it is. You know, maybe a couple years later you'll get a committee hearing, and it won't pass or it won't move on committee, and maybe you'll get an interim committee hearing. The interim being this period when we're not in session right now, but committees still meet. We can't vote on pieces of legislation, but we talk about pieces of legislation that we might want to pass later on. You might get an interim committee hearing. Interim committee meaning you might hear it again soon. It might hear again. It might go a little further in the process every year. And especially if you have people who are really fighting for this bill, and that's probably the best way to that you all can help me get a bill passed in Kentucky. Another political reality of this piece of legislation is I'm in the political party that's not in control right now. I don't like to go in front of groups and talk a lot about politics because, you know, a lot of pieces of legislation that we're talking about are real, you know, nonpartisan and, you know, don't have a particular ideological bend to them. But it is a reality that if I could get some Republicans on board that, you know, they control the agenda, they control what gets passed. If we could get some other people excited about this bill. The first year I filed it, I did have a Republican co-sponsor. And then this year I was looking at it today, Charlie Miller also from Southwest Jefferson County co-sponsored the bill. So those are people who are already on board. The Republican co-sponsor from last year actually is leaving the House of Representatives. So especially if you live in a rural area that has Republican representation, talking to them about this bill would have a really big impact. And again, I don't care what your political perspective is. That's just kind of that's a reality. That's as real as the words on the page of the bill that something that we need to talk about if you really want to work toward getting this passed. Another couple things I wanted to talk about this bill is I'm a lawyer, so I think about like legal standards a lot. This bill requires clear and convincing evidence if you want to strip someone of their rights as a parent, which I think is really really makes this a really strong piece of legislation, and it makes the family court judge or maybe in other parts of the state there's not a family court judge, makes them make written findings if they take any sort of detrimental action toward a visually impaired parent or potential parent. Those are the things that I'm really nerdy, and I really care about, like what's written in these pieces of legislation. And I think those are a couple of the things that make this a really strong piece of legislation. We, Kathy and I, use the model legislation from your national organization. So what else do you all want to know? That's all that I had planned to talk about, was to go over how things happen in Frankfurt and some of the specifics of the bill. Yes, ma'am.
I have a bad situation of being a lawyer also. I'm going to just ask, under the ordinary termination of parental rights statute, I believe clear and convincing evidence is already the standard. Has there been any blowback on this bill about being duplicitous or that sort of thing? Does there need to be something more that separates this bill out?
This bill is not, because it's not amending anything about termination of parental rights. I don't think anybody sort of made that connection between the clear and convincing and I think trying to think of how to say this, the clear and convincing standard, it can be applied throughout family law, so you could say it makes it more consistent even. I definitely don't think it's contrary to anything in other statutes or family law.
Oh, I don't think it's contrary. I just wondered if you were getting people expressing the opinion, well, we don't need this because we already have statutes that cover that, and so maybe we don't need a separate.
You know, if anything, I would say that I'm looking at the top of this bill says respect for the due process and equal protection rights of blind parents or prospective blind parents in the context of child welfare, foster care, family law, and adoption. That part of it, when we're just stating that we're already protecting existing rights, is probably the part that I would say people would make that sort of claim that, you know, we're already stating what's in law. Probably not the clear and convincing evidence standard. Right. Yes, sir. Yes.
No.
Oh, I don't know about NFB.
No.
I can tell you where you can look in Kentucky. You can look at lrc.ky.gov. So LRC stands for Legislative Research Commission. That's our entire legislative branch of government in Kentucky. And you can look under bills, and you can look up, so right now the columns say 2020 pre-filed bills. I have not pre-filed this bill yet. So those are bills looking toward next year. We had a 2019 special session, and then you go under, if you wanted to look at this bill as it was filed in 2019, you would go to 2019 regular session. And there's a couple different ways you can search. You could search under my name because I filed it, but you'd have to filter through all the bills that I filed. This bill was House Bill 221, so you would just have to look up House Bill 221. But there's all different ways you can look at bills. You can search for bills by subject. It's kind of like we have headings that are kind of like looking up something in the phone book, for those of you who've ever had to look up something in the phone book. And it can be kind of confusing, but because sometimes bills are not necessarily intuitively where you think they would be, but if you know nothing else about a bill except sort of what it's about, it is one way to look up pieces of legislation.
Okay, we have also written a resolution that we would like to go ahead and read and pass while you are here, and then we can maybe get this distributed to our legislators. Hang on, wait a minute, she's talking. Hang on a minute, Todd. She's got a question.
Sorry, Todd.
We were talking about where we live. We're actually neighbors.
All right, real quick, Todd, please.
Representative Cantrell,
Uh-huh.
are you saying that we should be the liaison between connecting other representatives from the Republican Party to DCU, or
I-
how do we make that connection?
I am saying that if you live in an area, so representatives respond to their own constituents. So if you live in an area and you have a Republican representative and you're contacting them about this bill, and then maybe for some other reason I approach them about this bill, then that's going to jog their memory of, oh, I have constituents who care about this. So that it's like it's teamwork. It's bringing it all together.
Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
Right, Jane, do you want the mic, or you?
Actually, I'm gonna have my, I
Oh,
know you
Phil.
all think better half,
Oh,
and that's okay.
well, you're
I'll
right,
come
you're right.
Come read this because
Okay.
I don't like to read out loud.
We've got to move along.
I know.
Starting really right behind.
It's not, it's,
Okay, so even though this is a little premature, this is going to be Resolution 2019-01.
actually, we can vote on it. Okay.
Okay.
We can actually vote on it today, but never vote.
All right. Regarding protecting the civil rights of blind parents in Kentucky, whereas protecting the rights of parents with disabilities is a notion that incredibly was rejected by the United States Supreme Court in the case of Buck v. Bell, 274 U.S. 200, 1927, in which Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes wrote, "It is better for all the world if instead of waiting to execute degenerate offspring for crime or to let them starve for their imbecility, society can prevent those who are manifestly unfit from continuing their kind. And whereas this insulting and unjustified view that people with disabilities, including blind people, are somehow manifestly unfit to be parents or otherwise to live the lives they want and to participate as members of society with all rights and privileges associated therewith, has too often continued to prevail in the courts even as we move further into the 21st century. And whereas this bias is reflected in matters involving adoption and guardianship and in contested child custody proceedings, because blind parents have been perceived by the courts, child protection agencies, guardians ad litem, hospital staff, and others as incapable of caring adequately for their children's needs, which has resulted in blind parents routinely being denied the right to be parents without unfair bias or unnecessary overreach by government entities. And whereas for most people, a fundamental aspect of living life to the fullest includes the joy of being a parent and sharing in the nurturing, growth, and development of a child, and whereas being a parent and raising children is a fundamental right which is protected under the Constitution of the United States of America by the First and Ninth Amendments thereto and under the 14th Amendment as applied to the states, and whereas many in the membership assembled today known within their own families and friends or have experienced such discriminatory treatment in the state of Kentucky, and whereas language has been crafted creating a bill regarding the rights of blind parents in Kentucky slated to be reintroduced in the 2019-2020 Kentucky legislative session with the support and co-sponsorship of State Representative Mackenzie Cantrell, 38th District, now be it resolved by the National Federation of the Blind of Kentucky and Convention assembled this 21st day of September 2019 in the city of Louisville, Kentucky, that this organization call upon our state legislature to enact this bill that will establish procedural safeguards to protect the right of blind people in Kentucky to be the parents and prohibit discriminatory presumptions of manifest unfitness solely because a parent or prospective parent happens to be blind. And be it further resolved that we urge state legislature to pass this bill regarding protecting the rights of these blind parents, guardians, or prospective parents in the state of Kentucky. And be it further resolved that we, the National Federation of the Blind of Kentucky, commit to provide any support and evidence to the legislative body and information necessary to assist the swift passage of this bill to ensure the rights of blind parents as it is introduced in this 2019-2020 Kentucky legislative session.
And Jane says that the committees, oh,
I was gonna say, you want me to do it again?
Well, I didn't. Okay. Yeah, the our resolutions committee votes do pass. We are in general session. Those of you who are voting members, if you look at your tag, those of you who are not officially voting members will have a yellow line drawn through your name, which means if we happen to do a roll call or something, you would not be allowed to vote. But anyway, all those in favor of the passing. Yeah? Well, we can't add. It says guardian. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It does. It says. But one just kind of point of order that we would have to pass the resolution as written. Once it comes out of committee, you can't go back and order changes or request changes. Although guardian can be considered like a grandparent. Yeah. I'm sorry, Jane. Did you?
I was gonna say, although you can discuss it, you just.
Yeah, we can't, no, we can't change it. All right. Yeah, it has. Yeah. So all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we will make sure that this piece of legislation is duly distributed to our respective. Yeah. So, all right. Thank you, Ms. McKenzie. Are you going to get to stay for lunch? Well, we're here. Probably, let's see, where are we on this program? Yeah, yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, yeah, okay. Can we have a door prize, please?
Yes, there's 3 of them.
Oh, is Melanie here? Okay. Oh, she has to be present. Oh, she is here. They said she is here. Okay, I'm getting conflicting information. Apparently Melanie is not here. All right, moving right along. Huh? I think Mary went to get them. Yeah, yeah. But I guess we probably should have hurried up because we are running. We are so far behind. I'm going to. Just yeah. You want to do it or we have to come around here? This is not a mobile. Okay. All right.
Okay, while we are rounding up the Bell Kids, I want to remind everybody about our silent auction that's going on. Don't come up right now, but just remember when we break for lunch, we have those 3 items for the silent auction. The first one is 2 nights here at the Hilton Garden. The bid for that's going to start at $50. The second one is 1 night at Embassy Suites and an additional gift basket with gift cards and a bottle of bourbon. That one starts at $50. The third is an Amazon Fire tablet. Bidding for that starts at $25. The sheets are up here, and as bids go up, they need to go up by $5. So during a break, come up and bid on those items. Those are some great prizes, and I think we're going to do some reverse raffle.
No, I don't think we are because
no time. Okay.
I don't know that we.
All right. Well.
Let's see. We could. Laura, do you want to do scholarship while you're up here? Taryn, are you in the room? Let's go ahead and go a little bit out of order and go on and introduce our scholarship. Are they here? Okay. Oh, good. Oh, our Bell kiddos are here. Who we have? Oh, we've got McKenna and we've got Anthony. We've got Kai. Yes. Oh, this is the part of the program that we all enjoy so much. Our Bell Kids. Bell stands for Braille Enrichment Through Literacy and Learning. It is a 1-week program here in Kentucky. everything that we do focuses around Braille, whether they're reading a story, writing on the Braille writer. If they're making brownies, they're reading Braille recipes and Braille measuring cups. If they're playing cards, they're using Braille cards. So it shows them without a doubt how important Braille is in their everyday lives. So does this come off, Phil, so that we can take this? We're going to let them say a few words, and Jane and Laura are going to kind of monitor the...
Okay, I got disconnected a second.
Was your fourth year at Bell? Yeah. I think it was. It was our first Bell. She was our very first Bell friend. And this is Anthony, and this is Anthony's third year at Bell. And this year Bell was once again held at the American Printing House for the Blind, who very graciously donated us the space. And space, as you know, is pretty pricey, so that is a very generous donation of them. It also gives us access to a lot of different opportunities that we had this year and actually the past few years to show our kids kind of the ins and outs of Braille making, etc. We didn't do a lot of off-site field trips, but I'm going to let Laura tell you about some of the things that they explored indoors. I actually was very in and out this year. Laura and Danielle and Kathy. Yeah, Kathy. They definitely held down the fort, and we had a lot of volunteers from in and out of the state.
Yes, and I need the microphone because nobody can hear me. So, okay. Anyway, and sorry about the feedback, but anyway, we had a great time at Bell this summer. As Jane said, we had 5 students, 3 of whom are here, and I'm going to give the mic to them and let them say hello to you. So, first of all, I've got Anthony here. I'm going to start with Anthony. So, Anthony, here, say hi. Say hi. Tell me your name. My name is Anthony. What was your favorite thing about Bell this summer? Talk real loud. Well, talk real loud. Talk real loud. Tell them, what did you do, Bell? What did you do? Did you like bubbles? Yeah. Bubbles? Yeah. Squirt guns? Did you like squirt guns? Yeah. Yeah. Did you like our picnic? Did you like our picnic? Yeah. Yeah. Did you like being around your friends? Oh, yeah. I just bopped him in the head with the microphone. Sorry about that, buddy. I hit Mommy. Yeah. Miss Laura bopped kids in the head all summer, didn't I, guys? That's what happens when you have lots of blind people. We have accidents, but it's all good. We have lots of fun. All right, Miss McKenna, are you beside me? Right here. All right, McKenna, tell us who you are.
Hi, Mom. My name is McKenna.
How old are you?
10.
What was your favorite thing about Bell, McKenna?
Making Play-Doh.
Making Play-Doh, that's been one of McKenna's favorite things the whole time. Yeah. What else did we make at Bell this summer, McKenna? Do you remember making some other things on Friday?
We made vegetable soup and cut up vegetables.
And you learned about, what about the vegetables? What kind of things did you learn about them? Did you learn about what they look like before they got cooked?
Yeah.
All right, next.
Can I tell you one McKenna thing?
Yeah.
McKenna gave me a very beautiful mobility lesson. Do you remember the day that I missed when you guys went to see the Braille production, and you showed me where it was the next day all by yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah. She walked me through APH. I didn't know where we were even going. I have Kai. Kai, can you say hi?
Hi.
Hi. How old are you?
How about you?
Are you 9?
9.
Is you 10 now? Are you 10 now? You had a birthday. Did you have a birthday? Miss Jane can't keep everybody's birthdays. I'm old, okay? Yeah. What did you like at Bell? What did you like at Bell? Are you going to tell me in Chinese and I don't know what you're saying? I'm sorry. I think it's beautiful, though. I bet you're telling me, aren't you? Yeah. You really, really liked the Legos. Did you play Legos? Did you play Legos? Yeah, Legos. When I went in there just now, you and Anthony were building blocks, weren't you? Yeah. And we did lots of Braille.
Okay. Okay. Kai also liked my Apple Watch. So, Kai, here, hold that. Here, Kai. Where are you? Here. Push Mickey. Here, let's touch him.
It does make that sound, you're right.
Oh, no, he's...
It makes a
Here.
very silly sound,
Touch him.
doesn't it?
Yeah, Kai enjoyed Mickey on my watch this summer, so that was something that's fun.
He's the only one who can make the Mickey noise.
Yeah, yeah.
We're a little jealous.
Yeah. So some of the things that we did this year, as Jane said, we didn't. The last couple of years we've taken the kids off, away from APH, done some field trips, ridden the buses. But this year we wanted to do some things a little different. One day we had a picnic. We took a blanket out on the grass in front of APH, and we took our lunches out. We had a picnic. We had a water balloon fight, and we had water guns. The kids, and we had bubbles.
Yes, we did have a blanket.
Yeah, we had bubbles, and the kids got to experience those things. So we had a lot of fun with that. And then on Friday we had our families come and APH staff, and as McKenna was telling us, we made vegetable soup. All the students helped cut up the vegetables. Miss Jane brought her Instant Pot, and we made vegetable soup for the families and had a really nice luncheon with everybody, and that was a great way to end up our week. Families got to meet one another and APH staff, and we had a great week this year. We look forward to Bell every year. We love our kids, and we look forward to continuing to do all of the fun things. So, McKenna, do you want to say anything else about Bell? No pressure. No pressure. All right. All right, Miss Jane, you want to add anything, or are we good?
I think it was another wonderful year, and I really appreciate anybody in the affiliate, if you were not mentioned by name, who came and volunteered, because people did come and do activities and crafts and games and sports and stuff with the kids. Thank you. Oh, we're absolutely already on the schedule for next year. It's going to be, July 27th. I think it's to August 2 or August 1st. Oh, why did I think it went into August? Okay, July 22nd to July 31st. 27 to July 31st, and I'm not talking anymore. Here, Kathy, I'll reset around.
Okay. All right. Okay. Bye. Thank you all. This is so much. Oh. I tell you, that's part of the fun of doing all of this. How does this go back in here? All right. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Okay. Huh? Well, we can go and get them both up here. Yeah. If Taryn, we're going to introduce our scholarship finalist and let her say a howdy-do to everybody. And also, if Riley will come up, then we will immediately follow with her experiences at the NFBK STEM program. That's a lot of letters and acronyms. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Laura to introduce our scholarship finalist and tell a little bit about scholarships.
Okay. Taryn, are you here? Yeah. Is that yeah, I thought you'd just come beside me. Anyway, once again, I'm here to announce our scholarship finalists for 2019, and I think everybody knows Miss Taryn Seif. We heard her sing the national anthem beautifully this morning. Taryn is a first semester freshman at the University of Louisville. She just graduated from the Kentucky School for the Blind in May, and Taryn was able to attend national convention with the whole group of us from Kentucky this summer, and we had a great time in Vegas and enjoyed spending time with Taryn. We had breakfast with Taryn this morning, our committee, and I think Taryn's kind of experiencing some tough times at college, but she's going to learn and grow from them, and we encouraged her, and she's going to end up having a great semester. So I'm going to let Taryn say a few words to you.
Hi. I'm really glad to be here and to have won the scholarship. I know that I'm already pretty familiar with a lot of you, but I don't know, I'm just really glad to be here with everyone, and yeah.
Taryn's a little nervous, but you know what? She's family, and we love her, and we support her, and she doesn't need to be nervous around us because we're all family. So congratulations, Taryn.
I tell you, this Seif family's just taken over. I know, I tell you, when the majority of the family's blind, what do you get? If Riley Seif would like to step to the podium and tell us a little bit about her experience in the STEM program at our National Center. Yeah, you're coming. Come on around. Come on.
I didn't even know there was a podium here.
Yeah, there is. Okay, here's your microphone. You kind of have to talk into it. It's kind of...
So I'm not exactly sure. I'm from the spoiled generation of people who already has a lot of accessible things, so I don't exactly know what to say when it comes to when I learn about new things that you guys would probably be excited about. So I decided I should probably just tell you about everything I did, or everything I remember I did. So... as you probably know, because this is how it usually goes, I went to the airport, I met one of my friends who was also going, and we went on an airplane together, and we went to the airport on the other in Maryland, and then we got picked up there, and then, so this is where the fun stuff actually starts. What we actually did there was we learned how to find measurements and how to find materials for building houses and stuff, but we also learned how to draw things like blueprints tactily using, I forget what they're called, draftsman, something like that. Yeah. And we used slates and styluses, some of us just used braille writers, depending on how comfortable we were with either of them. And we used those to chart out blueprints and stuff for the houses that we learned how to calculate the measurements for, so that we could build miniature models of them. And some things we also did there was we did outings outside of the building. We would go, I don't know the names of most of the places we went, but at some point they went swimming. I didn't want to do it. We went to some place that was by a bunch of boats. I don't know what they're called. Yeah. What? Sorry, not good at vocabulary. we walked around there, and of course they were very they really pushed people to use their canes there, so that because there weren't any rails separating the area from the water. And luckily nobody fell in, so I guess they did a good job. And we learned how to communicate with other people by asking them for help when we were if we wanted to find somewhere find a shop or something we didn't know where it was. We learned to ask help. We had to ask help from other people who were there. So I guess that was good. I don't exactly know what all I'm supposed to say. I learned how to use a glue gun. I learned that if you, I know it's weird, but I learned that if you, put water on your fingers before using a glue gun, it makes it easier to touch. If you accidentally touch the glue or need to touch it, you won't get burned. I'm trying to remember other things I did, but I'm not that great at memory when I'm supposed to remember things. So we only, at least I only made a skeleton. We had a choice to, cover it and stuff. I'm not sure if anybody put doors on theirs. I didn't because I was told that I didn't have to. But, we learned what a truss was for a roof. And we learned how to calculate the measurements for, the roof and how many rafters it would need, and what material and the houses would be made of, and how long and wide the wood that you make it out of should be. And we were supposed to use glue dots, but they didn't do anything, so we just ended up using the glue guns a bunch because the glue dots would not stick whatsoever. We want them to not use glue dots ever again. They don't stick. And some of them made different shaped houses. Apparently mine was interesting because I had a trapezoid roof that has some fancy name. And some other kids made somebody made I think it was a hexagon or an octagon shaped house. And they had to learn different calculations for that one. And unfortunately, I would bring the house I made, but apparently this package is fragile to people mailing things, means to break it. Yeah, I don't know if a little is the word for it. But it was fun. I ended up liking what I did, even if it was a tiny bit lopsided, because I'm horrible. So we learned how to use these tools, cutting tools, that cut at 45, 90-degree angles, and they're cutting, I guess, wood shears or something, and there were cutting boards with guides on them, so that you wouldn't have to be touching the wood while you were cutting, and you would know what angle you're cutting it at. and I guess that's what I learned, and I suck at this stuff.
Okay. Now, another important item on our agenda. I want to bring to our podium for a second time this morning Miss Amy Burrish, President of the National Federation of the Blind of Nebraska, and a member of our National Board of Directors, and she was going to deliver a report from our national office.
I bring you greetings from our president, Rick Abono. He is disappointed that he is not able to be here today. He's a busy guy. First of all, his most important job is as dad to his 3 kids. And he and their family, reside in Baltimore, and he and his wife, Melissa, who is also blind, they're busy with all their kids' activities, and he's also president of this huge organization. Maybe you've heard of it, National Federation of the Blind. And anyway, there's affiliates in every one of our great states, including the District of Columbia. And he's only one guy and has a lot of dynamic energy, but he can't be in more than one place at one time. So he sends us around, and we have the privilege of visiting a lot of great affiliates around the nation and sharing a little bit about the work that we do in our national office. And I also want to bring you greetings from our immediate past president, Dr. Mark Maurer, sorry. Wow. Let me assure you, President Rick Abono is definitely alive and well, as is Mark Maurer. And Dr. Maurer continues to work hard. He wants everyone to know that he most certainly is not retired. Far from it. He is still very busy working hard on legal advocacy and those types of efforts, and is very much still a part of things. I also want to let you know that President Rick Abono loves to hear from everyone, and his door is always open, and don't ever hesitate to reach out to him, Office of the President at nfb.org. Feel free to reach out to him or call him. Everyone knows the number by heart now, probably, right? 410-659-9314. Very good. Let's see. Gonna try to hit on some of the high points. I know we're running just a little bit behind schedule, so I want to try to move along. We have so many innovative programs and projects, and you heard about a couple of them this morning, and so we'll try to highlight some of these things. I think one of the coolest things, and this is something that we all can do, is just to celebrate being a member, right? And one of the things to do is to reach out to those of our friends who are not here. Hello again to everybody on the stream. It's good to have you. But we'd love to have you here in person. Becoming a member of the National Federation of the Blind is something that has tremendously changed my life for the better, and I would bet that it's safe to say yours too, or you wouldn't be here in this room. And so a challenge for each of you would be to reach out and to try to bring someone else new in. And if each one of us did that, think of how much we could grow our organization. So just keep that in mind. Think of how your life has been touched and changed, how you've become empowered, and you want to share that gift with other people. The National Convention, let's talk a little bit about that, right? So we had a convention this past year in 2019, and it was in a small little city of Las Vegas. It wrapped up on July 12th. How many of y'all were there? All right. So we were just shy of breaking the convention attendance record this year. We only had a mere 3,284 people, but I'd say that's pretty darn good. The record, by the way, was 3,300, and that was clear back in 1997 when we were in New Orleans. So, if you weren't able to attend, I want to encourage everybody to go check out the audio highlights, as well as there's text of the presidential report, as well as the dynamic banquet address. And on that convention page, you can also find things from all of our conventions dating way back to the 70s, and it's really fun to go back and check out those archives. But I would encourage you to go back and look at the highlights from this year. The convention is essentially it's the place where you can go to learn about and to help have a voice in our national policy for the organization. And also our elected representatives help to make that happen. So even if you can't be there in person, it is your elected delegates that help to get that work done. But I'd encourage you all to attend. If you can, start making plans now. The convention for this coming year, 2020, is going to be held in Houston, Texas, June 30th through July 5th. And you should all come. It's going to be in the heart, a really cool part of downtown city. So, and you'll not want to miss it, because you never know what surprises are in store. So. All right. Sorry, I'm just trying to skip ahead so that we can. How many of y'all have membership coins, by the way? Yes. Oh, very good. See, I was gonna try to come up with some cool little game or some kind of thing we could do just to see who has their coins. And anyway, they're very cool, and I think they highlight in print and in Braille. It's just a tangible symbol of what we believe and what we try to show our membership and all those that we come into contact, emphasizing that together with love, hope, and determination, we transform dreams into reality, and we do it together. It is a collaborative family effort, and I wanted to just remind everybody that if you have folks that are on the fence or kind of thinking, maybe I'd kind of like to join, but I've heard a lot of crazy things that I don't know about those NFB people. They might be a little bit radical. They might be, pushy. I don't know. Whatever. There's lots of myths that abound. But we have started to do these teleconferences now for individuals that are curious about the Federation and what we do. And it gives an opportunity in a small group setting over the phone in a teleconference system for people to call in and to kind of find out a little bit more about what we do. They're a great way to kind of promote and have people to safely ask questions. And so I would encourage you guys through your social media or your whatever organizational communication things you have here for your chapter to go ahead and put the word out about these if you haven't already. The calls take place on the third Sunday of each even-numbered month. and the third Wednesday of each odd-numbered month. And so there's we try to keep them kind of short, to an hour or so, but it's a good way to start to bring people in and ask questions that they might have. So we have one of the most aggressive and effective legal advocacy programs in the field of disability rights. And in some areas such as accessibility in higher education, we are the only entity bringing cases to enforce our nation's disability laws. And the effectiveness of our legal advocacy is really due to our adoption of a strategic approach that really emphasizes we take cases that we think that we're likely to bring about some kind of systematic change. So legal actions that, things are carefully planned and thought out. Another myth I think people have is that, we're sue happy, or they're always going to bring about some kind of lawsuit, and that's not true. We don't take it lightly, and we only do it when we feel like it's for the greater good, and it's going to bring about some big changes that will enforce laws. And so we've done a lot of things over the years. For instance, if you now vote privately, independently, in the way you want, that is thanks to the legal advocacy of the Federation. From raising children to higher and equal pay. How about accessing those textbooks? Those are all things that we have done. But one of the things I want to urge you all to be cautious about is if we've had some instances around the country where people are reaching out and they're saying, hey, we're doing this lawsuit on web accessibility or some kind of thing. And it sounds kind of good, and people get tempted to jump on those bandwagons, individually. And if there's something you're thinking about doing, you should definitely reach out, not only to your state president, but to President Riccobono or to someone on our legal team, because we're trying to really make a concerted effort to kind of work together. We have kind of a strategic legal plan, and some of these other things don't sort of follow that plan, and kind of want to make sure that everybody coordinates efforts and works together. So keep that in mind. I also wanted to draw your attention to, this was in the February Braille Monitor, and it talks about our strategic plan, which was drawn up and based off of input from our members of the Federation. And it's looking at the continued growth of our organization and setting forth some priorities. And so I'd urge you to go look at that and to read the plan. And then if there is other feedback on that, again, we encourage you to share that with the national office. Meet the Blind Month is coming up very, very soon in October, and I'm sure you all have some great activities planned for that, and both maybe at a state and chapter level. And so I want to encourage you all to also share your events with the national office. We have a running calendar of events that we're putting up, so that everyone can know what everybody else is doing. The Independence Market has all kinds of materials and promotional things available, so if you haven't already made your order for any materials that you might need, I'd encourage you to do that really soon. And October is going to be a great time also to make a push to start promoting our new public service announcements that we have. They're available in English and in Spanish. They're very classy, and it makes it makes a difference if there's someone locally who can kind of make the push to have those aired. So I'd encourage you guys to consider personally sending announcements to radio stations here in your local area. You can download them, or you can get copies from the national office if it would be helpful. But they feature little snippets from blind people and doing all different kinds of things. And they target people who are losing vision, parents of blind children and blind parents, to join the movement. And so I encourage you to start thinking about that. If you aren't signed up to receive the Braille Monitor, you should also do that, because it's a great way to keep informed about things that are happening. Another way to keep informed of all the things that are happening in the national organization and to stay in touch is, of course, by the presidential release. And I'm sure you guys do this here in Kentucky. But the presidential release is something that President Riccobono makes monthly, and it's available both in English and in Spanish, and transcripts are also available for the deafblind. And so you can find all that information also on our website, nfb.org. We're trying to make the website as useful of a tool as possible, so that things are easy to find and tools are readily accessible. So we have undergone some changes, so if you haven't visited the website lately, I encourage you to go do that. Also, we have a number of great podcasts that we do, and you can access them on Alexa, as well as your other favorite devices and ways to access podcasts. So I'd encourage you to do that. We also have, of course, I mentioned the Braille Monitor and the Voice of the Nation's Blind. We have Imagineering Our Future, which is a newsletter from the Jernigan Institute directly. And then the Voice of the Nation's Blind podcasts as well. So let's talk a little bit about well, I should actually I did want to mention actually a big kudos to you guys for continuing to work on that parental rights legislation. It's something that is happening all over the country, and I think it's one of the most important things that we can do. And it still kind of surprises me to this day that, sometimes we have to work so hard for something that you think, shouldn't have to be so hard, and we shouldn't have to advocate so hard for those rights, but we do. And so I want to instill that those protections are in place. So congratulations on making those first steps, and we're behind you like 1,000%. So anything that you guys need this coming year as you begin that legislative work anew, we're all behind you with that. Let's talk a little bit about hello. I guess I need some more coffee. Self-advocacy in higher education toolkit. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to check that out. Equal access in higher education is kind of an ongoing priority that we have. And we've put this toolkit together to better address students' needs and to help prevent or kind of mitigate some of those access barriers that we've seen and that have been created. And so we want to help with some strategies and some tools to help do that. And again, that is found on our website. It's under the Programs and Services menu. And if you have feedback on it or suggestions, things you want to add or things that you think might be helpful, please let us know on that too, because we want to make it a tool that's going to be the most useful and helpful for people, but can't fix what we don't know or change what we don't know about. So that's where you all come in, and that's being an active member and looking at the resources and helping us to fine-tune those. We talked a little bit earlier about some of the legal things, and we have such a stellar team that we work with, And I'd encourage you, again, to visit our legal webpage to learn more about all the current programs and the recent rulings and filings that we have had. There's lots of information that can be found there. Some of the recent key settlements that we've had are the National Federation of the Blind and 3 blind taxpayers who were sent inaccessible print communications regarding their back due or overdue tax payments. And despite the IRS knowing that they were blind, they sent them inaccessible material. And so we sued the IRS for its failure to provide notices in alternative formats such as Braille, large print, electronic documents, or something in audio. And then there were 3 registered voters who were blind in Maryland, and they sued the Maryland State Board of Elections for its failure to provide private and integrated accessible voting systems. And we've made great progress in this over the years, but as things change and the old systems kind of die, and we need to come up with some new equipment and new sources for voting, we want to make sure to stay diligent on that and make sure that they continue to be made accessible. Despite the mandates of the Board of Elections to provide access to voters with disabilities with an equivalent, accessible voting, it didn't happen. So we reached out to make sure that it did and that the ballot would remain private. If you have any experiences in these following things as well, we want to hear from you. Reach out to Valerie Yingling. She leads the efforts with our legal programs and coordinating things such as this. So if you've tried to access anything on GoDaddy and use its services and you've run into a snag, you need to contact Valerie. If you are trying to become employed and you have looked at job search engines or had to take any of those pre-employment tests, we're investigating the inaccessibility of those assessments. And this includes companies like ZipRecruiter, Caliper, and Indeed. And so if you've tried to use any of those and experienced any accessibility barriers while searching for jobs or trying to take any of those assessments, you also need to reach out to Valerie Yingling, 410-659-9314. She's at extension 2440. So please reach out to her. We also have a whole bunch of ongoing surveys, and we have links on our website, and we really do seriously want your feedback. Lyft and Uber rideshare testing, and if you use a service animal and how your trip goes, we want to know. We want to have feedback on that. Also, K-12 higher education technology survey. We're still gathering information regarding that as well. The things used in our nation's schools and how they work with screen readers and those type of things, whether you're a parent, a teacher, or an administrator. We want to know. And of course, to get to our national convention, to Washington seminar, or a vacation. We all need those from time to time. I don't know about you, but I would like to have a little more of them. But There's also a need to gather feedback regarding accessible barriers when you have to use those self-service travel kiosks or travel websites, all those things at airports and bus and train stations. So there are some surveys posted on our website about that, and we'd encourage you to go make your opinions known there. Thanks to the hard work and dedication of the members of the National Federation of the Blind in 2018, we had just a banner year, really, legislatively. We carried out the momentum into 2019, but we still have a lot of work to do. That continues. Our work on the GAIN Act, Greater Access and Independence Through Non-Visual Access Technology, GAIN. It was the GAIN Act of 2019. It's HR 3929, and it has been introduced and does have some co-sponsors. And this basically directs the Architectural and Transportation Barriers Compliance Board to develop a minimum of non-visual access standards for home use medical devices. And this is so huge. Exercise equipment, also home appliances is also included in that, and the enforcement of this standard. And these are all things that we use every day. And so we want to urge you all to contact your representatives. We still need more co-sponsors, so continue to reach out to them. Also, we continue to work on the Access and Technology Affordability Act. And this legislation facilitates the purchase of access technology by establishing a per-person, individual, refundable tax credit to be used over a multi-year period to offset the cost of accessible technology for blind people. We all know that it's, again, something that we need, that we use every day to live our daily lives, to be competitive on our jobs, but we also know how expensive that it is. And so we have some sponsorship for that as well, but we still need more. It's in the process. The other one I want to talk to you about too is the Disability Employment Act, and this deals with securing competitive and integrated employment for people with disabilities. And this continues to be a topic that Congress is talking a lot about. Our legislative initiative seeks to basically just to overhaul the whole outdated, antiquated approach to employment that fails to adequately equip workers with disabilities for the challenges in the 21st century. The Disability Employment Act will hopefully spur innovation that will increase the enhanced modern employment opportunities for people with disabilities. And the Transformation to Competitive Employment Act, and this is Senate Bill 260 and House Bill HR 873. And this was introduced both in the Senate and in the House. And we continue to work on this legislation. These bills would phase out Section 14C3 of the Fair Labor Standards Act over a 6-year period of time, at which point the provision would officially be sunset. And we really need you urgently to please call your senators and your representatives and ask them to co-sponsor this legislation. You know, as your state representative said, I mean, it is so true. By hearing from constituents, it does make a difference. Sometimes I know it's easy to think, what's my one little call going to do? My little voice, what power do I have? Well, someone else will deal with it. I'm not going to call. I don't need to. Or, I don't know what to say. I'll screw it all up. I don't understand all the facts. What if they ask me some questions? Well, most cases, you're not going to need to know every nitty-gritty detail of the bill. You just call and say you want them to support this or not to support this, and you tell them you're a constituent of blah, blah, blah district. And that's the main thing that they need to know. But if things come up, we can help with some of those talking points. But we really do need each one of you to step up and make those calls. I want to tell you about some really cool other programs that we have going on. The National Federation of the Blind Career Mentoring Program. This is a pretty new program. It's going on now for about the last year or so, and it allows blind and low vision students to be paired with mentors who are successful, competent, trained, employed blind role models to help them kind of navigate the path of education, career, and training and all of those things. And we currently have programs in Nebraska, yay, and in Maryland and in Mississippi. And so it's something that you guys might think about reaching out and trying in Kentucky here. It's an informal mentoring program, and it's a lot of fun, and there's contacts made each month, and then there's quarterly activities and things. You heard about NFBEQ. That's great that you had a student attend. It is such an exciting program, and what a way to just open up opportunity in a field that once was thought to be kind of off limits for blind and visually impaired students. And of course, Bell. We're proud of Kentucky for being a part of the Bell Choir for several years now. And it's a highlight as I travel around to always hear from and see the Bell kids, because it's always fun to see. You never know what they're going to say, but it's really fun to hear what their observations are, and how powerful that is to, at such an early age, be able to have an impact on their young lives. We have a lot of early childhood initiatives. There are two key ones that focus on literacy and independent travel. Our Braille Reading Pals Club is a great early literacy program, and it fosters positive attitudes about Braille for children and their families, and just to promote the love of reading. And it provides parents with a print Braille book and encourages them to read daily with their blind or low vision child. Our Early Explorers program has been developed to help parents instill in their children also a love of traveling independently. So it provides the children with a long white cane that's just their size, and it provides their parents with strategies and teaching tips and techniques, because as parents, we are our kids' first teachers, right? And so things that are lifelong skills that will serve you well is to learn to read and become literate, and how to travel independently and be comfortable with that. So I urge you to take advantage of that and to promote that program. The National Reading Media Assessment is also something that I want to encourage you to let your TVIs know about. It was created under the leadership of the NFB, and it's an assessment toolkit that clearly identifies the reading medium and the best media for blind children or those with low vision. It determines whether each child is assessed if they should be taught print or Braille or both. And we really just need to promote this. It's a pretty new program,
But it was really cool when we set it up because we worked with educators across the country and blindness professionals and things. It was a great team of people assembled to make this assessment be the best that it is. And it's really simple to administer. You just go to the website and find all the information there, and the assessment is there. Our Center for Access and Non-Visual Access to Educational, wow, let me try that again. Okay. All of our things have these like really long titles of like, just say what it is. The NFB Center for Excellence in Non-Visual Access to Education, Public Information, and Commerce is made possible through a Non-Visual Accessibility Initiative. It's a grant that we got from the state of Maryland, and it's a partnership, and it's an ongoing financial support for us, and it working with our personal commitment of our members on these issues. And through this effort, we engage expertise with access technology staff and our members to ensure that blind people have access non-visually to products and services that will allow us to continue to live the lives that we want. So we continue to work on all of these things, and again, it's a nationwide thing, and we need your help. Continuing our work to create a nationwide accessible research library for students and academics with disabilities who get the materials they need in a timely manner. Continuing and developing the accessibility switchboard, which is a way for online accessibility information to be shared. And we're continuing also to work on the evaluation and development of emerging non-visual access navigation. This stuff just is going to continue to kind of increase to, it's not going to go away. We're going to continue to work on it until we get our work done. And this is looking at different venues, public transportation information, and all those kinds of things in cities across the country. So as things upgrade and change with those transportation systems, that all the information is accessible and available. And we need people to be testers and teachers of this technology. So if you're interested in participating in any of those things, reach out to our national office. We continue to host accessibility boutiques. They're informal sessions that we hold kind of seminar style. They're free and open to the public. They're at our center in Baltimore, and then are made available online, and they feature different topics each time on accessibility and technology. And of course, we're really proud of all of the initiatives and the things that we do in our International Braille and Technology Center for the Blind. We continue to serve as a resource for several people. We have, I think, one of almost every piece of technology that has come out in the last, several years, and we evaluate how it works and what it is, and try to dispense that information around to everyone. We have a blog that is always fun to read, because our technology staff provide their feedback and kind of give suggestions and put out all that information there. Okay, and then I also touched on earlier the National Center for Visual Election Technology. We continue to work on that, and we urge you to just be diligent in your state. I know in Nebraska our voting equipment is getting old and it's getting harder to fix, and so right now we're working on trying to find replacements. So I want to make sure that we remain involved and keep our due diligence on that so that we can continue to vote privately and independently. So the NFB Blind Users Innovating and Leading Design Build, and this is where again where you guys come in. We want to ensure access to the things that will help us to live the lives that we want, and we need you guys to step up, to be in the user groups, to not only provide feedback and demo some of these things. That's how we know if things are going to truly work or not. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to reach out and let us know so you can get you connected and working on that. Don't forget about the Independence Market. You can get things online. You can call them up if you need Braille cards, if you need any devices, some writing supplies. We have all of our publications are available also through the Independence Market, so take advantage of that. And it was nice to see presentations yesterday at TAD about our great service that we implemented. It was a dream of Dr. Jernigan, and we made it happen, and that is NFB Newsline. Scott White heads those efforts at our national office, and now it's available in more ways than ever. If you forgot your code, you can email and you can get all that information from the national office, NFB Newsline at nfb.org, or you can call 866-504-7300 and they'll help you out with your information if you've forgotten it. There are more ways to access Newsline now than ever, and yes, you can get your news on the website. Yes, you can listen to it on TV or the radio or some kind of podcast, but this gives you access to newspapers and magazines, and you don't have to wade through all those annoying ads and all the crap that's on the website. So just use your friendly Alexa, or if she's feeling cranky, you can you can get it on the web, you can have it emailed, or you can use the original phone method. But there are so many ways to get it. Plus, they have the Target ad, so I'm kind of partial to that. I like that. So yeah, let's get some more store ads up there, right? There are also monthly training sessions now for subscribers, and I think that's a really great tool, so that if you don't have someone in your state that can really quickly and easily travel around, or if you're just something you're thinking about, just call up. They do these calls monthly, and it's a real easy way for you to get some information and training on how to use all of the new features and how they work and all those kind of things. So check often too to see the new publications that are added, because all the time that's changing. We recently got like Access World and what are some of the other ones that we got? Couple new some state papers and the OK magazine and the Onion we have now, and Runner's World. So there's a lot of things out there. So check back, because it keeps changing, and you don't want to miss out. And it's a good way to stay current with coworkers and things, to read some of the most current things that they're probably having access to. So that way you can be all current when you're at work, hanging out at a break. One of the last things I want to mention is, all the work that we do, of course, doesn't happen on its own. It is a partnership, and it is something that we all do together. in different ways as we're able, but to run your affiliate, to run your chapters, and to run the national efforts, it takes cash. Funding the movement, it must be done, as they say, so all our battles can be won, right? You know where I'm going with that. You better get on the PAC plan. So, the lowest PAC pledge that we would accept is $5. That's a cup of Starbucks coffee, right? So you can do that. Once it's just one little donation from your checking account taken out each month, okay? So that's one thing that you can do. So I'd encourage you to consider that. I'd also encourage you all to become or contemplate becoming a member of the Dreammakers Circle. Okay? A lot of us, you don't like to think about these things and make these end-of-life plans. I get it. I didn't want to think about it either, but it's a smart thing to do. So I'd urge you to consider doing that, and remember the NFB in your planned giving. And that the easiest way is you can turn your bank account into a POD, payable on death account. You can just walk into your bank and you can ask them for a form. You can pay it forward by naming the NFB as a beneficiary of any IRA or pension or other kind of accounts that you have. So when you prepare your will, just remember the Federation. Give that some consideration. There have been a lot of people already that have become members of the Dreammakers Circle. It's growing the future. It's growing the future for blind kids. And if you want more information about that, Patty Chang is like the queen of this knowledge, and she can break it all down for you in ways that are really simple to understand. And she'd be happy to help you with any piece of it that she can. And she's at the national office, extension 2422. You can also email her, pchang@nfb.org. And of course, I know you guys are familiar already with the vehicle donation program. We take most vehicles, boats, cars, trucks, motorcycles, whatever, as long as they can be driven or towed, we'll take them. So help spread the word about that, okay? And if you need materials and things, you can contact the national office. Put a little link on your webpage. That's what we did, and we get calls occasionally. You guys, we have, although we have a lot of work to do, right? I mean, you're working on parental rights here. You're not alone. There's a lot of other states that are working on it. We want to make sure that we have access to materials in higher education. We want to have access to privately handle our own medical documents and things. So there's a lot of work to do. There's no doubt about it. And probably as long as the world keeps turning and changing and growing, we're going to continue to have a lot of work to do. But sometimes we may get a little frustrated by it. Sometimes you may get a little overwhelmed. But I'll tell you what, we have already accomplished so many great things since this organization was formed by those brave souls in Wilkesboro, Pennsylvania. And I don't know a better group of people that I would want to have on my side than the National Federation of the Blind. Anytime anything comes up that's an issue, a concern, I know all I have to do is just pick up the phone and rally the troops, and they'll come running. Every day, I am filled with energy, with inspiration, most importantly with love and hope, because together, all of us working shoulder to shoulder in our like-minded causes, we turn dreams into reality. Society already has enough low expectations for us, so that's why we strive every day to raise those expectations. Because we know that blindness is not the characteristic that holds us back or defines anything about our future, right? So let's continue to work together hand in hand with love, hope, and determination, and help make each other's dreams become reality, and go build the National Federation of the Blind.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Amy. It's always good to hear what's going on the national level, and we try to mirror legislation and projects and programs here on the state and local level as well. Okay, we're coming to the portion we're going to have our luncheon and our board meeting. So before you jump up and take a break to run to the ladies' room or the men's room, Jane is going to talk to us a little bit about the logistics of how the meal is going to be served. It's a little bit differently than we had originally discussed. So hang on for this important news.
All right, this year we are not doing box lunches, so you're not going to go out in the hallway and get your food like you have every other year. But do pay attention to this. Yes, you can get up. You can take a break because it's probably going to be about 10 minutes before it's ready. I need you to take everything off of the tables in front of you. If you want to keep your stuff at your spot, that's fine. Put it in your chair, put it under your table. Unless if you're Todd, don't knock the table over. But make sure that it's off the table. They are coming in. They are going to put out silverware. They're going to